Welcome to Great American Gardens. I'm Tricia Springer. Every year, San Francisco's Golden Gate Park hosts visitors from all over the world. 1 million of those visitors enter another world as they pass through the elaborate gates of the Japanese tea garden. Designated the oldest Japanese-style garden in the United States, the garden is designed for quiet reflection. Golden Gate Park is a place where San Franciscans come to relax and play. Nestled inside the vast acreage of the park, the Japanese tea garden opens onto a world of beauty. Visitors who stroll through the Japanese tea garden are captivated by its fascinating landscape, where a bridge arches its back to slow visitors to a crawl, and an angry dragon disguises himself as grass. The Japanese tea garden gives visitors a glimpse of a true Japanese landscape and a peek into the past. The 5 acres of this manicured garden evolved in stages, beginning as a village with a tea house. Around 1920, the grounds were expanded to include the main pond, creating a Japanese stroll garden. The Japanese tea garden is truly a public garden with 1 million visitors a year. The Japanese tea garden opened its doors in 1894 as an exhibit in San Francisco's Midwinter Fair.
After the fair, the agreement was that all of these displays were to be torn down. The park was supposed to be restored to its original state.
But the Japanese garden was so beautiful, it was allowed to stay. The centerpiece of the garden is the tea house. Here, visitors can relax, take in the splendor of the garden, and enjoy a cup of tea. Women dressed in kimonos give people a taste of a Japanese tradition.
Look at that bird.
In the central pond, beauty gracefully drapes across the landscape, fulfilling an artist's palette and creating a picture-perfect backdrop. One of the most popular features of the garden is the drum bridge, a fascinating piece of architecture.
It's called the drum bridge. In Japan and China, it's called the moon bridge. When you look at the reflection in the water, you see a complete circle. It is one of the more popular spots in the tea garden.
It has been a favorite in the garden for over 90 years, especially with children.
We have visitors who came here as children, and now they're almost 100, and they remember having climbed over the moon bridge, and it's a pretty special thing to be able to be a part of that.
Visitors are not the only ones to have seen the garden through the years. Many of the garden's majestic trees have grown here for over a century. One of the oldest is just at the base of the tea house.
The oldest tree in the garden is a 300-year-old black pine that was supposedly brought from Japan as a bonsai and then planted in the garden.
Here, the Japanese black pine is pruned to grow flat, accentuating the horizontal lines that distinguish Japanese garden design. Even the 100-year-old trees that tower overhead have been carefully shaped to fit the garden's design.
Some of the trees that are really special are the Monterey pines that have been pruned consistently for many years in a zigzag pattern.
The Monterey pine is just one of the native California plants that blends seamlessly into the Japanese garden. A walk down a stone lane leads to the Zen garden. Here, a forest of Japanese cedar stands in the quiet solitude. Delicate shades of green surround these uniform trees and invite contemplation. But don't get too comfortable. Lurking in the shadows is a garden pest of sorts, designed to delight the observant viewer.
I am standing in front of the dragon hedge. which has been in the garden for at least 30 years and maybe as much as 50 years. It's made out of bamboo called marble bamboo. And it can be notorious for coming up wherever you don't want it.
Gardeners here have contained the runaway grass by shaping it into an angry dragon. Carefully placed rocks symbolize its head as well as its tail. The dragon hedge and the arching drum bridge remind us that there is more to the Japanese tea garden than a place to sip tea. It opens a window onto the wondrous landscape of Japan.
So unless you have an opportunity to go to Kyoto in Japan, this is the next best thing.
San Francisco's Japanese tea garden is a place of rich history and graceful beauty that is open to all. When we return, dinosaurs still roam the land inside a misty conservatory in Buffalo, New York. Next on Great American Gardens. Buffalo, New York endures some of the harshest winters in the country, averaging almost 8 feet of snow every year. But despite what many people might think, gardens flourish here. If you need proof, we present to you the Buffalo and Erie County Botanical Gardens. Nestled in a park in Buffalo, New York, the Buffalo and Erie County Botanical Gardens help city dwellers stay in touch with nature throughout the year.
I think that in Buffalo they realize that having a place they can come 12 months out of the year to see beautiful gardens and beautiful plantings is such a wonderful oasis year-round.
At the Buffalo Botanical Gardens, the conservatory offers a visit to warmer climates, where dinosaurs lurk amid ancient plants indoors. While outdoors, plants must be hardy to survive Buffalo winters. The gardens include 156 acres of trees and a 1-acre Victorian Conservatory.
It is a splendid place to be, especially during the colder months of the year, that it's like magic, like a crystal palace.
And it's all free to the public. The public was a major concern of the man who designed the park where the gardens sit. South Park was created by landscape designer Frederick Law Olmsted, who also designed New York City's Central Park. His vision was to create natural environments to make cities more livable. In Buffalo, he planned South Park to include both an arboretum and a conservatory. The Tri-Dome Conservatory remains as awe-inspiring as a crown jewel, designed by Lord and Burnham, America's premier conservatory designers at the beginning of the 20th century.
I think the overall feeling of the Buffalo Botanical Gardens is a Victorian greenhouse brought into the next century. We have plants from around the world in a beautiful historic structure.
The Arboretum has also brought some of its history into the next century. Many of the trees Olmsted planted still stand today, including this weeping European birch.
If you look at the branching pattern on this particular tree, you'll see that it reaches all the way down to the ground. Now, it's very hard to find a 100-year-old weeping European birch tree specimen. This is a very unique tree in a very unique arboretum.
In the shrub garden, plants must be hardy to survive just one buffalo winter, much less 100 years. This Hopi crepe myrtle is uniquely adapted to survive cold northern winters.
It can survive -20. One very nice trait of crepe myrtle is that it can be killed down to the ground, but it will sprout back from the roots and rebloom that coming year.
Thousands of plants not tough enough for a buffalo winter spend their lives under glass. Visitors enter the conservatory through the palm dome, where exotic palms live in a spacious world of light. The central dome is 80 feet across and about 75 feet high. It shines like a diamond, made with more than 3,000 panes of glass.
When they first walk into the palm dome, it's just wow.
The wow feeling continues in the ancient plants house. Here, an eerie mist rolls across the pond, suggesting an age long ago when dinosaurs ruled in a world of ferns and cycads. These dinosaur topiaries are made with moss and creeping fig.
I felt it was particularly appropriate to have topiaries in the forms of different kinds of dinosaurs, because in the age of dinosaurs, ferns and cycads were the dominant plants.
An apatosaurus and her baby relax near the pool. A flying pteranodon hovers nearby, and Tyrannosaurus rex seems to strike fear in an unsuspecting squirrel. Next door in the desert house, nearly 500 kinds of cacti and succulents thrive during buffalo's winter, thanks to the heating system. In South Park, the elements are no barrier to beauty. Outdoors, gardeners plant hardy survivors, while indoors, survival is made possible by a world of glass. At the Buffalo and Erie County Botanical Gardens, plants must make it through tough winters to add a touch of nature to city life all year long. A forgotten hat, a serene face. It's all part of a park of art. Next on Great American Gardens. People visit parks to be close to nature. They visit museums to make a connection with art. But we found a place where art and nature seamlessly coexist. Located just outside of Boston, the DeCordova Museum and Sculpture Park offers a unique blend of both. The DeCordova Museum and Sculpture Park in Lincoln, Massachusetts is unlike any place in New England. It's a unique combination of a park, a garden, and an outdoor museum.
It's an extraordinary collection of sculpture pieces from artists throughout New England.
The beauty of the artwork found in this roofless museum is matched only by the tranquility of its setting. DeCordova offers visitors sculptures by famous artists, a garden oasis within the park for quiet meditation, and breathtaking views.
The nice thing about the Museum and Sculpture Park is that there's something here for everyone. There are very private places within the park. There are very open and public spaces.
This free sculpture park brings art and nature together across 35 acres of woodlands and lawns. More than 125,000 people stroll the grounds of the park each year, among nearly 80 outdoor sculptures. DeCordova Museum and Sculpture Park was originally the estate of Julian DeCordova, a prominent Massachusetts merchant in the early 1900s. A passionate lover of the visual arts, DeCordova and his wife Elizabeth traveled and collected art from around the world. He donated his property to the town of Lincoln in 1930 so the public can enjoy the art he loved. DeCordova features an important collection of works by internationally recognized artists such as Alexander Lieberman. Instead of rare or exotic flowers, DeCordova chooses plants to complement the artwork.
The plant materials that were selected are intended not to compete with the sculpture pieces that are here. They're intended to be an enhancement to the setting.
Some sculptures are surrounded by ground cover to discourage people from climbing on the artwork. Ivy is used in this way around the sculpture Sunflowers for Vincent, as is the hardy cotton Easter shrub surrounding the gift. The shrub's evergreen foliage has small white flowers in the spring and becomes purplish in the winter. The plantings around other sculptures are more whimsical. Verbena is planted next to this hat-shaped sculpture so that it seems to be growing out of the rock itself. Daylilies and sedum enclose Figure from the Sea with a circle of color. And the serene face of Eternal Presence overlooks a bounty of greenery. As visitors move further into the sculpture park, they are drawn to a garden that rises 40 feet from the lawn. Alice's garden is designed as a meditative place with stone walls that invite you to sit and contemplate. Here, giant boulders are nature's sculpture. Over 300 tons of stone and granite were brought in to add to the landscape.
We didn't want our stone features to be contrived and very formal, so we set them in the landscape to be sculptural in nature so that they were very much a part of the natural landscape here.
As visitors walk through this part of the garden, they're in for a special treat. There's a sweet lemon scent that fills the air here. A closer look reveals that the fragrance comes from lemon thyme. This herb grows in the walkways between the large slabs of granite. When a visitor's foot brushes against it, the aromatic lemon perfume is released. Alice's garden serves as a focal point for the entire park because of its central location. There are terraces and granite pathways that tie the main lawn to the beautiful Flint's Pond. The spectacular view of this large, tranquil reservoir is one of the best features of Alice's garden. At DeCordova Museum and Sculpture Park, bright and subtle colors of nature merge with bronze and stainless steel, making the sculptures seem almost lifelike. That's the beauty of this unique park. It's a place where Mother Nature's art and art created by human hands live in harmony. We'll revisit San Francisco's Japanese tea garden when we return and see a unique roof made of thousands of pieces of bark. It's just ahead. Welcome back to Great American Gardens. Earlier, we visited San Francisco's Japanese tea garden in the heart of the city's Golden Gate Park. Perhaps one of the most striking features is beautiful architecture, including a gate with a very unusual roof. This gate actually came from the 1915 World's Fair in San Francisco. After the fair ended, the founder of the Japanese tea garden thought it was so unique that he didn't want it to be thrown away. Instead, he saved it himself and moved it into the south gate of the garden. But the gate's beauty wouldn't last forever. By 1985, 70 years later, the aging structure was rotting and falling apart. In particular, the roof was in desperate need of repair. But this was no ordinary roof.
The roof's created out of bark shingles from Hinoki cypress. And there's just literally tens of thousands of pieces of bark, just really, really thin, and they're attached with bamboo nails. And the guy who did the roof work on this was brought over from Japan just to do the roof, and he'd load his mouth full of these little bamboo nails and spit them out and hammer them in. It was like a machine. And it took him just weeks to do this thing, and it's just an amazing gate.
The South Gate is just one of the many fascinating historical aspects of San Francisco's Japanese tea garden. A must-see if you ever visit Golden Gate Park. Thanks for joining us on our tour of Great American Gardens. And remember, public gardens are your gardens.